the chat is on the right-hand side. So don't be shy. Please tell us where you're tuning in from. We already see we have people from Santa Monica, San Diego, Los Angeles. I'm tuning in from Salt Lake City, Utah. So really excited to have all of you here. And so remember, chat is on the right. Feel free to engage with other people. Tell us where you're from. But when you look below, you will see Ask the Question. So as we are preparing for the Q&A at the end of Dr. Jason's session, feel free to only put your questions in the Ask a Question area. This way we can upvote them and get the best questions ready for our Q&A session. And so to kick things off, I am going to share my screen and share a little bit about the history of Therabody. So just give me one quick second.
Getting ready to go to one of my last exams in chiropractic school.
Okay, everyone can hear that.
And I jumped on my bike and I was splitting traffic.
You can hear that, Robin? Okay.
They say necessity is the mother of invention. And my need at that time was, in 2007, I was getting ready to go to one of my last exams in chiropractic school. And I jumped on my bike and I was splitting traffic, and a car realized that it was going the wrong direction and cut me off on the freeway. And I was going 55 splitting traffic, and I slammed in the side of this car. My soft tissue damage really didn't set in until Christmas of that year. And I just started a practice with a buddy of mine here in LA. I was stuck and I was in pain. I didn't care what this thing was that was going to fix me. I just wanted the pain to go away. Sitting in my apartment, and I thought, you know what? I need something stronger. I need something that just punches that area. And just by me sort of thinking that, I thought, I have a tool out there. I could probably make one. Went out and I grabbed 2 or 3 tools and I brought them in. I set them on my coffee table and I just started messing around with it. And I found that this thing worked. I could suddenly now get in the shower for 10 or 15 minutes and do what I needed to. I could eat. I hadn't slept for over 40 days at this time. A solid night's sleep from the pain, using it for pain, and then using it for rehab, and then using it for helping my muscles build over time. Not understanding really, but I was sort of the first patient. And with my education as a chiropractor, and then applying the science to myself, I didn't realize it, but this was being ingrained into my knowledge about what this does. Over time, between 2008 and 2011, I created 4 different versions of the same technology. And I felt an enormous obligation to figure this out, to find out why this was working. In 2011, I created what was my first real tool that I'd taken apart, welded pieces on, put them back together. On a larger scale, I did 250 of them. In 2014, I flew to Boston and met with the New England Patriots in their hotel before the preseason. And the guy that called me said, hey, just bring as many as you can bring. And I could bring 22. I fit them in these 2 bags, carry-on bags, showed up at the hotel, unzipped these bags. And as fast as I could take cash and hand out a Theragun, I was handing out a Theragun. I ended up taking it with me on the road. I treated a bunch of NASCAR guys. I treated other professional athletes with this crazy thing, just sort of dabbling it into my normal treatments. I consider it a mission of mine to make sure that everyone that even is interested in a product like this understands what I've gone through as a clinician, what I've gone through as sort of the developer of this product and what we've done as a company. I have dozens of physicians, body workers, physical therapists, chiropractors around the world who say to me, this changed the way I practice. For you to be able to have something you can reach out to, grab a hold of, fix yourself, take away the pain, increase your range of motion, give you better activities in daily living, spend more time with your kids, grandkids, hiking, whatever it is. That's literally what we're trying to do. There's 3 things that I learned through this process that makes this work. And it's frequency, amplitude, and torque. And the combination of those 3 things is what Theragun offers that makes it so special. We have 12 years of experience. What we want is for people to feel trust in this product. To trust the product, you have to have education. You have to know what this is. And to be able to understand what this is, you have to go with someone that knows what they're talking about. And there's no one that knows better what they're talking about, quite frankly, than Theragun and myself, because I've been doing this longer than anyone I know, anyone I've met. I've been to a lot of places on this earth. Where we're at today is way beyond what I could have ever imagined. I think it's really important that people understand that, that first product was a representation of desperation. Like I needed something and I didn't care what it was. Theragun's future is to continue along the path that we are now. We are driven by science and research, education. We're constantly innovating. Our goal is to keep people pain-free and keep people moving. And the last time I checked, we're not in every hand in the world, so we got a lot of work to do.
Great story. So, as everyone can see, just getting a bit of a background on how Theragun came to life. And I think that that's just, a classic entrepreneurship story. And so before we hand over the floor to you, Jason, just want to give the audience, things about your background. So as you know, Dr. Jason Wersland is the founder and chief wellness officer of Therabody, formerly known as Theragun, a leading global tech wellness company rooted in science and technology based in Los Angeles, California. Dr. Jason's Theragun story began in 2007 when he experienced a debilitating injury in a motorcycle accident. Necessity, of course, became the mother of invention, and he created something to help him deal with his pain. And that's how Theragun was born. Theragun is now trusted by more than 250 professional sports teams worldwide, physical therapists, trainers, chiropractors, celebrities, athletes, and everyday people in over 60 countries. In May of this year, the company rebranded from Theragun to Therabody and introduced a brand new sleek line of Theraguns, including a mini, as well as announced Thera1, a line of CBD solutions. So without further ado, Dr. Jason, I'm going to give the floor over to you. Everyone, please enjoy Dr. Jason's presentation on why failure is your superpower, and we will do the audience Q&A at the end. Please remember to hit ask a question below so that we can start getting your questions ready for the Q&A. Dr. Jason, taking it over to you.
Right on. Can everybody hear me? The reason I still get emotional even now when I watch that video is the thinking of all the times that something kept me to keep going, just keep moving forward. Because I really felt like this was going to be able to help a lot of people. I'm going to try and keep it together. And I hope by the end of this presentation that you guys can gain some knowledge. Sorry. That video gets me every time. From my experiences. And where we are today required a lot of overcoming many challenges. And some people call those failures. And I think in life, it's important to understand that. And we'll go through this today. And I want to share with you how all of my failures got me and Theragun to what you see today in that video. This slide really it tells so many stories. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Each one of these represents 12 years of R&D. And some people may say R&D is failure, but it's trial, fail, trial, fail, trial, fail. And then suddenly, get it together, sorry. Suddenly something happens and you succeed. And I think people would call this a failure. From 2008 to 2009, that was a massive paradigm shift for me, because 2008 model was what I used on myself. And you see that little blue cap that was on there. I made that for that model. And then going through my injury and then helping someone else go through their injury months after I finished my treatment was when I realized I needed to really make this bigger. And I had a responsibility to build something out that could provide support to other people. Every time I used this on a patient, they wanted one. So in 2009, I made 250 of those, and I sold those as fast as I could make them. I had to take them apart and put them back together. And we'll talk about this in a minute, but I think it's really important that people, when you're trying to become a master in something, it's really important to use your hands, whether it's playing an instrument or working with tools or art or whatever that is. That I think it's really important. And I had a chance as I was growing up to do that, a lot of that. I want to get into that in this part, but just understanding that I could take that apart, put parts in it, apply some of my skills and put it back together. And then from 2009 to 2010, I thought I would reinvent this whole idea of how it felt and how it was used. And 2010 was a massive failure, but it was such a huge lesson for me. And I think if you look at some of the models that are out there in the world now in this massage gun space, they've copied that. But I learned in 2010 a really big lesson, which is ergonomics and the way you hold on to this product is integral in its ability to provide therapy. So then you can see throughout the next few years, 2012, that was a trial. We never actually made many of those. I think I had 6 or 7 of them that I was testing, and it led me into 2013. 2013 led me into this idea of 2016. 2016 is when we launched as a company. I met my business partner. We'll get into some of this in a second. And then you see where we're at in 2020. Guys, 2020, we have Bluetooth technology. It's pre-programmed to run for you. It's connected to an app. What? And I look at what 2020 is and where we were in 2008. I had visions and ideas of what I wanted that to be like. Never in 1,000 years would I have been able to articulate what we are today. The definition of failure is lack of success, and this next part is really important: the omission of expected or required action. If I had I stopped in 2008 or 2009 or any year along the way, I think about that, and it might be a totally different experience. Failure and quitting would have literally stopped what's happening in our world, in my world. Albert Einstein said, failure really is just success in progress. 100% agree. If you'd rather not fail, you'll probably never succeed. And it's interesting that Einstein's father died believing he was a complete failure. And I'm sure that a lot of you have had your experiences with your parents. I've had mine. I love my parents. My dad's amazing. He's kind of a crazy guy, but he's an amazing grandpa, and I wouldn't have anyone different. But for a long time, my dad thought that I was failing in life. Understanding that similarity between Einstein and myself was sort of interesting when I read this. You have to fail to be successful. That's just part of the game. My failures, and trust me, this is something that I'm okay with talking about, and you have to get to a point where you are. But, way back when I was in high school, I had a football scholarship that I lost because I made some bad choices. Was that a failure? I've felt like that for many years. I dropped out of college. I didn't want to do what I was looking to do at the time. I felt like it was too much, and I pulled out. Started my own business. I lost a business, had to file bankruptcy, went through a divorce, finally decided to go to chiropractic school, went to chiropractic school, figured out I was going to do it in 4 years. It took me 7 years because I didn't pass the national boards 4 times. Each time you don't pass the national boards, it pushes you out 6 more months and another $1,500. So there was double problems there. I went through 4 business partners before I met my current business partner, Ben. And understanding what you had to go through, it cost me almost $200,000 of my own money that I had earned through selling these, and I had to pay these people out to get out of my life. The daily challenges are no different, and I put golf on here because golf is the craziest game. You're searching for perfection, and your success is based off a number, and I love that challenge. I think I threw it in here as a fun thing because if anyone golfs, they know what I'm talking about. These are some really examples I think that a lot of us already know. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this slide, but I think it's really important if you look at just the numbers. It says Michael Jordan lost 300 games, 26 times. He was trusted to take the winning shot. But the last statement he says, and that is why I succeed. 12 Taraji Henson, like, she's amazing. If you look into her life, the fact that she came to LA at 2001 with a baby boy and suddenly now went through some experiences of her own. And she started out failing from getting into what she felt like was her shoe-in to become an actress. And look at where she is today. I love her. She's amazing and powerful and represents a lot of things. And then Babe Ruth back in the day. I mean, everyone kind of knows his story. He struck out, more than 1,300 times, but he hit 714 home runs. Those numbers don't add up, but we magnify his successes because of who he was. So I think it's important we do the same. Elements of failure that make it a secret power for me. I call it a slingshot effect. When you experience resistance, metaphorically, think of someone putting you in a really big slingshot and pulling you backwards. You feel that pull. It's a physical feeling sometimes of you pulling you backwards. It's almost too much. And I think the voice inside our head sometimes says, I can't do this. Is this, why is this happening? You have all these sort of redundant questions you're asking yourself. But then whenever that lets go, whenever that slingshot lets go, it just shoots you so far forward. This concept has been a really powerful tool for me. 95% of things in life, the hardest thing and the right thing is the same thing. It's not easy to wake up at 6 a.m. and work out, but it's the right thing to do, and it's going to help you. And I could use a lot of metaphors. I think for me, that's one of my favorite ones. And resistance builds strength. We live under gravity, and that's how our bodies and our muscles are able to do what they're doing. You take us out and put us in space, like the astronauts, they lose that resistance. There's a really cool concept there. I put in here passion, persistence, and delusion. Those were my sort of special tools that I felt like I needed to have on a daily basis to be able to succeed. Because if I wasn't a little bit delusional, I would have listened to the voices of people saying, you're never going to do that. My own father was like, people aren't going to buy that. They can make their own. But I was delusional enough. I had this vision in my mind, and I also had something inside of me that drove me. Failure is how I know what I'm doing is right, because my failure helps me understand the right way to do things. And I heard this saying, this last thing, there's 1,000 ways to fail. There's 1,000 ways to do something wrong, and there's one way to succeed, but failure has to happen. It's part of your success. Now, I think an interesting thing for me is understanding that realizing that the commitment, and I put some synonyms in here of passion, because realizing that my commitment is what sort of drove my passion. And passion is intense, driving, or overmastering feeling of conviction. I have to be more convicted to what I'm doing than the people around me. And I didn't do it on purpose. I do it because I felt this commitment. Commitment led to persistence. Persistence led to passion. And then it started over again. More commitment, more persistence, more passion. And people start to feed off of that. Why is passion important for entrepreneurship? And how has it got me where I'm at? Passionate people are always focused on what we can be rather than what is. It's so powerful. They're always chasing their goals with the unwavering belief that they will achieve it. How many times have you watched a game or a movie or something where you just connect with the person in that movie, and it's almost like you want to tell them, like, keep going, keep moving. It's going to happen. You know how it feels when you're looking forward to something really special? That's how passionate people feel every day. These two pictures really show a lot of things, but I'm going to share a couple of things with you. My family had a farm when they came over from Norway, and my grandpa used to use that thing on the top. It's a little hand device that actually barbers would slide onto their hands, and they would use that on the heads and the shoulders of the guys they're working on. But my grandpa actually would turn it on and put it on the floor, and he'd put his feet on it at the end of the day. After a long day out on the farm, he'd come back and put it on the ground. And I remember my brothers and I, we'd get so mad at him because it would just shake the whole house. But man, I can't imagine what that must have felt like on his feet. And this black thing you see down on the bottom, that is what I first started with. I started using this thing and it vibrated, but I'd put it underneath my armpit and it would take the pain away, but it would only take it away for a little bit. It was almost like getting a taste of your favorite topping or your favorite candy or something and not being able to have more. And that's really what drove me. And this resourcefulness was in my gene of like, I got to figure this out. And, you know, as Robin said, this was born out of necessity. I wasn't sitting in my apartment thinking, how can I sell hundreds of these? I was sitting in my apartment thinking, I got to get better so I can get back to healing people and doing what I love. So I just wanted to share with you that these two pictures really resonate with me. The fact that it took passion to come from where you see on that black thing to where we are today in 2020. There's also this idea of the 10,000 hour rule. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but it actually originated in Japan with some of the violin players that are young children. And they realized for them to become masters, they just needed to pack in 10,000 hours. And by the time they finished their 10,000 hours of practice and playing, they became masters in that craft. So literally for the last 10, 12 years, I have gone everywhere I can. I've been a walking lab. You know, that first picture on there where you see me on there under a tent, that was my very first ever experience of being out treating athletes. And that was in 2010. And I just went to a bike race. The one on the left is me treating an X Games gold medalist, a snowboarder, great guy. The guy laying on the table is Deshaun Watson. I got to work on many, many professional athletes at top levels, and hearing them tell me that this thing's amazing has really kept driving me. And it really confirmed these failures that I'd gone through and this voice that kept telling me, keep going. And then sitting there working on guys like Deshaun and them saying, don't stop, doc, this is amazing. I've never had something like this. It really does drive that passion. And the keys that you can do to find passion to turn into business, these are just some things, these are my recommendations, things I did, but I discovered what I was good at. And I was good with my hands. I was good with resourcefulness, kind of delusional. Some people will tell you probably more than others. And I'm super passionate. Discover your unique skills and what differentiates you, because we're all different in certain ways. And I think it's really strong and powerful when you find what differentiates you. And as we mature, we recognize that having different hairstyles or wearing different shoes when you were younger were almost embarrassing. As you age, you start to understand that's what makes you different. And as I told you, and I mentioned this a few times, I'm going to say, use your hands, build, paint, craft, play an instrument, do something with your hands. There's some neurological connections that happen in your brain that actually increase hormones and allows your body to think outside of a box. And then I put in here delusion, and I don't need to talk about it anymore. And then lastly is commitment. Even when it's not going well, you have to stay committed. I wanted to share with you, what I sort of envisioned one day of this being in every country, every hand in the world. And this picture just shows you where we are today. I don't show this picture to boast. I show this picture so people understand the effectiveness of this product and how strong that drive was, because I knew people were going to get it and I knew it would work. These are some teams we work with and some leagues around the world. I've worked with Real Madrid closely. I've worked on a lot of their players, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, the Olympics. I present on an annual basis to all the major leagues in the States and then some in Europe on the new cutting edge uses of percussive therapy with their athletes. I didn't realize that was going to be a byproduct of creating this product, but it also realized that I became sort of the master over the years of using this, adding protocols and education. And this, again, is just sort of a testament to who we are. From Mark Wahlberg, Justin Timberlake, Maroon 5, Shakira, all of these people, we didn't pay them. You see the Kardashians on here. They actually posted. Mark Wahlberg sent this video to us and said, please post this. I love your product. Justin Timberlake has many of these. When I was going through my failures, there was something that told me this was going to work on bodies. They just needed to feel it. And to me, this is a testament. It's not really so important that there are celebrities, but it's more important that they have a voice and they're sharing that with so many people. And this is sort of a pat on the back to Therabody as a company that for all the work we've gone through to get this into the hands of people. And some more here, you see Cristiano Ronaldo. I've worked with him. DeAndre Hopkins is an amazing wide receiver. You see the Ravens. This is something that's used. The Major League Baseball home run derby, that thing was all over the screen that day. And we didn't, this was because they use it and they love it. I'm going to end with this because I'd love to get into question and answers, but these are the takeaways that I hope if you guys can screenshot this, or Robin, if you send this out, but failure is part of being successful. And I don't think failure is the right word, but people use that. I'm fine with that. Call me a failure all you want, but it just led me to success. And the hardest thing and the right thing are most of the time the same thing. And you need to find your passion. And it may not be the job you have now. It might be a craft you're doing or something you're doing on the side, but you need to find your passion, because passion really is what I think allows us to feel like we're living. I want to thank everyone for allowing me to do this. You know, ironically, Robin, you know, when you called and you mentioned what this topic was going to be like, it was really sort of dear to me. I was concerned that I might not be able to get through it without getting too emotional, because, you know, the failures in life, every time I failed, I felt like I was getting closer to my ultimate goal. And it's I think you tapped into something that a lot of people sort of miss, because they think we were overnight success, a 12-year overnight success. So I want to thank you for allowing me to do this. Thank you, Robin.
Oh, well, I mean, no, I'm the one that's so grateful to have you here, and, you know, your story and just how Theragun came to be and where you are with your business right now. I just think it's so important for people to see that, you know, and to hear the story and to see your timeline, because I think whether or not you're more focused on an actual career and working for a company, or whether you have entrepreneurial, aspirations, it's important for both. Because like, even in your career, you're going to fail as you're moving up that ladder, just as you are, when you are going to take the leap into entrepreneurship, right? And start a business. And so that's why I felt that, having you here today to talk about that and being willing to share your story and to really dive into really how important failure is, and that it actually is used in the direction of positivity and success, is really important. Because I just think that we look at it as such a negative, but we don't realize that that is the journey towards success, right? And any successful person will tell you that, be it Oprah, Bill Gates, right? Anybody will tell you the same thing. And so I think it's so important to talk about this. And I'm very grateful that you were able to be here today and to present that. And so I'm going to start off with a couple of questions. We actually do have a few questions from the audience as well. So I say, let's get going. Okay. So, and again, this is coming from me. What would you say has been the absolute biggest lesson as an entrepreneur for you?
The first thing that comes to mind is don't listen to the naysayers. I think nowadays they call them haters, but it's really important that you don't listen to that. And most importantly for me is I felt something in my gut. And I think just people trusting that. People can't feel your gut. They may see the logical things around you and all the reasons why you should or should not do something. But honestly, what really drove me through these things is something inside saying, you got to keep going. You're not done yet.
Yeah, exactly. And there will always be, even you said that your own father was like, someone can, make that use themselves, but you've proved him wrong. So yeah, you definitely have to ignore the naysayers. For our audience, because I know that a good amount of them are career executives, and so this question is for them. But what has been the best career advice that you've received, right? So we're not necessarily thinking about, entrepreneurship, right? Just thinking about whatever your career is. What was the best advice that you've received?
To not think linear, to not think that you have such a determined path by other people, to every step along the way. And I learned this from my uncle actually in Norway. Every step along the way, learn from that environment. If you're a sweeper in a warehouse, what's going on in that warehouse? And why are you cleaning those spaces? If you're a delivery person, communicate with the people you're delivering. It's not, I think just the best way is to be present and recognize what's going on around you wherever you are, because those lessons will help you in your next step up. And I think it's just the failure, the successes, and understanding that you sort of took that recipe from whatever situation you were in and then took it and applied it to the next thing. We as humans, we build, we actually acquire these information. And I think a lot of times you get so determined on your path that you know, in college, you may take a class you think is just a filler class, but engage, be present in that class, because the worst thing in life is regret. And I've learned that, and I don't want to have regrets. And I think looking back on a lot of things in life, that's part of our failures, right? But to me, thinking about what my uncle said, which is explore and learn everything you can in the environment you're in at that time. Don't be so focused on president this or, you know, leader of that or whatever it is. So I think that's what came to mind right off the bat.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, did you ever see that there's like a visual where they say, you know, you think that the trajectory, like you said, right, is it, but it's really like this, and it's down here, and it's up here. You know, that's kind of what I think about when you talk about this. Let me get to some of the audience questions, because we had some really awesome questions. So this comes from Karen, and she asks, how do you discover your unique skills? The process can seem a bit ambiguous. Do you have any recommendations for where to start?
Yeah, I think there's a photo that I've seen that I remember. I had it on a screenshot for a while, and I think I actually laminated it. But it talks about there's a circle of what you're good at, and then there's a circle of what you enjoy doing and how that crosses over, and whatever that centerpiece is. I've shown that to my children, to friends, and each person has that. It's different for everybody. And I totally respect the fact that it is sort of ambiguous, but I think it's a combination of following your gut, even though sometimes it's not logical, and just exploring. I mean, it took me 45 years to have what I think people consider success. Right. But I look back on it, once things all sort of came full circle, I'm realizing that my years as a salesman and playing sports and working in this industry or that industry, the medical world, and it all sort of came around and it created who I am today. Right. So I think that ambiguousness is the idea that you're not done yet. You still need to add some quivers to your toolbox to be able to find out that sort of whole pie that you're creating. And you know, I feel like I could talk about that for half an hour.
Right. Well, we'll have to have you back, and we'll discuss a whole different topic of conversation. But I agree, there's so many wonderful, pieces that we can take here and expand on. Let me take another question. So this comes from Jen. Have the struggles of COVID discouraged you at all, both personally and in business? How have you stayed positive and motivated? And I think this is a really important question for what we're all going through right now.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to be honest. I think COVID came into my life, and I'm going to make it kind of personal. COVID came into my life at a good time, meaning I had been prepared to walk through that fire so many times that I recognized, okay, wow, this is a whole new challenge. Where are the opportunities?
Right.
And thank God I have some amazing people around me that support that as well. It wasn't just me. And that's why I said, I think it was timing. Had this hit me in 2010, I probably would have given up. But now where I'm at today with the team that I have, from my fiance to the team and the company, I am able to withstand that storm. And I also feel like it sort of comes in. I just realized that Ann Williams asked the question, what do you do when you feel failure prevents you from coming forward? And how do you overcome that mental block? Here's my answer.
I'm going to ask that next.
And I think it's the same thing that you're talking about, is the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. And I just had to keep telling myself that this is the hardest thing. And it's almost like I had my eyes closed. When I'm working on a patient, my hands are my eyes. And I'm feeling where that tension is. And I'm not going away from tension. I'm going into the tension. I need to release that tension. Metaphorically, that's the same thing for me. If I have my eyes closed and I'm feeling inside my body, where's this tension? That's the direction I'm going to go. Because that's where the learning takes place. That's where the slingshot effect happens. That's really what happens. And Anna, I'm telling you, for me, it's switching it around. You know, Tony Robbins says we do more to avoid pain than we do to gain pleasure.
It's true.
And I learned that when I was 22 years old.
Right.
It hasn't been easy to apply it over my life, but those two things, trying to do as much as I can to gain pleasure rather than avoiding pain, and going towards the resistance. And I know it seems crazy, and that's the part where people look at you and you have to kind of plug in the delusional part.
Right. Well, and like you even said, you know, your whole metaphor about when you're dealing with your patients, right? And that you actually have to like go towards like the pain and attention, right? That's kind of like how you tackle fear. You really just have to like go towards your fear, right? Of starting a company or asking for that raise or whatever that looks like. And whatever the outcome is, it is. But I feel the satisfaction of knowing that you went towards your fear is always worth it. So that's just kind of like my 2 cents, but I really like your symbolism behind that. I think it works really well for understanding fear.
Yeah.
Let me take another question. So this comes from Paige. How do you not let failure keep you down, but motivate you further? Any tips on overcoming what feels like a failure you can't come back from?
What a great question. Look, it doesn't get easy. You know, I was in a weight room, a training facility yesterday, and they have this really big thing on the wall that says, the weights don't get lighter, you get stronger. Yeah. So if you think about that, for me, I think when we experience failure, I had something happen just recently. 3 days ago, where I messed up, and that mess up just kept talking in my head. Man, you messed up. You shouldn't have done that. That wasn't the right time. And I had to step back a minute, because I think sometimes those things can be so overwhelming and unjustifiably imbalanced. And I think it's our responsibility as adults to be able to step back and say, kind of go through. I went through my mind and I thought, is it really that bad? Yes, I messed up, but was it really that bad? No. Does that really overshadow all of these other things I did? No, it doesn't. It is this one event. And it's us being able to sort of place that into context and recognize that doesn't define us. We have the rest of our life to define us. And this is a psychology I've had to go through. And look, I'm going to be completely honest with you, Robin, in the group. I have 2 mentors that I've had since I was 17, that I can just buzz in and say, hey, I'm off balance right now. Can you give me some cues? And I've actually got this little card that I leave on my desk that one guy actually gave to me when I was 22 years old. And it sort of grounds me, and it brings me back to the truth about who I am. And I think, you know, one of the things that I recognize when I'm experiencing failure is that's not the truth about me. That's just something I experienced. And the truth of people, just so I can get to the definition of this, is what you were, are, and will be. And I'm not a failure. I wasn't a failure. I'm not a failure, and I will not be a failure. Right. I experienced those things, but that's not the truth about who I am.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm going to take another question. This comes from Natalie, and she asks, should you ever throw in the towel and agree a direction you're going in will not work? Obviously, you kept at it, and you kept at it regardless of huge setbacks. But should anyone in a similar situation pick up the pieces and move in a different direction with relationships, careers, dreams? That's a good question.
I can't hear you. What'd you say? Yeah, that's a tough one. You know what? I quit with Theragun at least 6 times. Really? It just was like, it just logically wasn't making sense to me. I remember I was working at the UCLA track early in the mornings when they were getting ready for the games in Brazil. I was working on the US track team, and because they're not getting paid, and a lot of them didn't have sponsors, all this recipe of what felt like the wrong thing. And I get in my car and I'm driving back to my house, and it's 1 PM, and I've been there since 5:30, and I have $20 in my hand. And so Natalie, to ask that question, my mind takes me back to that right away, where I'm like, what the F is going on here? Like, this is not worth my time. And then my dad's voice, and then other voices start coming in. You shouldn't be doing this. You should be doing this. You should be doing that. And for me, I had to set it aside for a minute And when I say a minute, like a couple of days. And I've told the story. There's times where I've actually swore at it. I had it in my hand and I would yell at this thing like, "You're not helping me. You're causing me more problems." And I'd put it in a box and I'd hide it. But inevitably, someone comes to my house. I mean, Malachi Davis, a guy that I've gotten to know over the years, he was training Alex Rodriguez on the beach in Manhattan Beach. They lost a battery. They walk up to my house and ding dong on my door. And I walked to my door. I'm like, "What's going on?" He said, "You're Dr. Jason." I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "I'm down here with Alex Rodriguez and we lost our battery. Do you have another battery?" And Robin, that week I had swore I wasn't going to do Theragun anymore.
Wow.
And it just comes back around. So I think, you're going to go through those things. That's part of the recipe. It's just part of it. You're going to be challenged to your core, and you have to know that. And if you're not challenged to your core, then you're not on the right path.
I agree. And if I will say, I think that some people deliberately choose an easier path, like whatever that might look like. And that's fine, right? Because I think some people just want their life to be, simple, have their job, know where they're going, what they're getting paid and all of that. And that's fine. But I think for those of us that, like you said, we're delusional, I think that that's what it's about. Like you perfectly explained it. And it's like you said, it's going to challenge you to your core, but you have to keep going. Cause like you said, the hard thing is usually the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any closing remarks at all about, any other tidbits of information you want to leave with the audience?
No, I just noticed in the chat here, Todd, wherever you are, your last thing says fail forward. And that's a great one. I've heard that so many times. I heard it in soccer and football and sports. And, had I quit, I love golf. Had I quit when I sucked, I wouldn't love golf.
Right.
So I think it's understanding that fail forward. I think my closing thoughts are really, it does take time. This isn't something you can go to a class and learn and check the box and you move on. You have to go through these times. And I think that's what builds character. That's what builds experience. That's what builds empathy. That's what builds confidence. And I think just understanding that those are byproducts of failures and having to reach deep down inside and find, that drive. And to your point, Robin, whether it's in the role you're currently in, at the job you're currently working at, and the people you're with in the company, or if it's something you want to do externally, just know when you make that decision, if you're not challenged to your core, in my opinion, you're not on the right path.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, this has been really amazing. There's always going to be a couple of tech glitches, right? It's just, our world. And now that we're even more heavily in the digital world and the virtual world, it will happen. So thank you to everyone for your patience as we work through getting that video up. Dr. Jason, again, thank you so much. I just think that it was great to hear your story and to really have a wonderful, deep discussion about failure. And I wish more people would talk about it as like, this thing that we can embrace and understand that that's towards the road of success. And so just to wrap up, everyone that is here today, we do Up-Level Live sessions every single Wednesday. The times change a little bit. They're either at 10 a.m. Pacific time or 12 p.m. Pacific time. And so definitely follow us in Crowdcast. Obviously follow us in social so that you can know every new speaker that we're going to have each week. And obviously, before further ado, we want to say the name of our winner of the Theragun. So everyone, like I have said, all across social, everywhere I could get to, Dr. Jason and his team are being generous enough in giving away an elite Theragun. I'm going to say it again. They are giving away an elite Theragun today, which is normally retailed at $399. And I just think that is just immensely generous. So in looking at everyone that has participated today, I am going to choose Miss Karen Zelnick as the winner of the Theragun. Yay to Karen. So What I'll do is I'll coordinate with your team, Dr. Jason, and making sure that she gets that. A huge thank you again to you and your time and your awesome presentation today. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Again, you can tune in and rewatch this anytime on our website, moveuplevels.com, and we'll also share tidbits of videos and information with everyone. So thanks again. Have a great afternoon.
Robin, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
See
Take
ya.
care. Bye, everyone. Until next week.